Hey everyone, welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 939, Black Politics. Please hit the like button as you come in, share the video if possible, and hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust. I'm here with my co-panelists, Nagona 11 and Renaissance Man.
Hey, how you doing, Mike?
Hey, what's up, Mike? Welcome back, everyone.
Chilling. A lot on the plate this last 10 days or so, last week or so, in terms of politics on the left. And so what we'll discuss the first item on the docket from Talarico and his rally with Black people. Let's start with the first item.
You answer our questions or you suffer the consequences.
And I'm excited to welcome to the stage our next United States Senator from the great state of Texas, State Representative Talarico.
How are you gonna earn the militant Black Democratic vote? What are you gonna do? Are you gonna sit down with us and talk to us, have the real heart to heart?
So you stay here, you answer our questions, or you suffer the consequences.
So I'm happy to engage. We'll come to here in just a second. I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate you traveling in, and I
I
appreciate
did
you.
it for my people, not for you.
Wonderful. And that's wonderful. I think that's wonderful. And it's all right. This is what this conversation is supposed to be about. Yeah. So.
So what's your take on this one, Renaissance Man?
Yeah, I'm a little torn on this one. The Texas Senate race the primary race was very contentious, in the sense of a lot of people, Jasmine Crockett had a lot of passionate followers. Talarico obviously kind of emerged onto the scene. Initially, he kind of, I think, jumped in the race late. So I think Crockett kind of thought it was her nomination to lose, which, he ended up winning the nomination. And there's kind of been some ambiguity about, has the Talarico campaign reached out to Crockett? Is Crockett endorsing him? Is she going to campaign with him? And you have these people showing up, and, some people are saying, hey, these are Jasmine supporters, and that they're kind of, sore losers, and that they're trying to create division. Other people are saying, hey, that they don't really trust Talarico, that he has a, sort of that, hey, let's all get along type of politic, and that you really got to push him. I personally think that, some people are going to appreciate the theatrics of it. I think I think it's more than just showing up and yelling in town halls. I think you really got to be very strategic about what an agenda looks like, and what you really, really, really want to, really press him on. So it's personally not my style, just because I think it's okay. You go in there doing a bunch of yelling and shouting, but at the end of the day, what really is the agenda? Like, what are you really pushing for, other than like, hey, we have a video that's gone viral? So that's my initial thoughts.
We're going 11.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. I tend to believe that people, social media and so forth, a lot of people are pushing now to say, hey, what are we going to get? You have to be answerable to us, and you better tell us what you're going to do for us and all. And some of that is performative. We want to see, and there are people out there who want to be in your face and saying that, of which I think has some value. It does have some value, but I also believe that it's really going to have to be about getting out and getting to those polls and really making these votes count. If people are going to articulate what their what their positions are going to be. So you're going to have to really listen up. But there's got to be a ground game. There's got to be a ground game going, and people have to really respond there. So it's interesting to see this. I know people want to see this, but there's got to be a lot to back this up, and I think that's most important. Votes really getting that together, making that happen, and finding out where people's positions are, and then making that happen. But getting those votes out, very important. That's it. That's what I have to say about that right now.
All right, we'll move on to the next item here, which is the Texas scorecard. Black Democrats press Talarico on outreach as candidate defends repairing past harms. Let me zoom in on this. Following a contentious Houston town hall over his campaign's Black voter outreach, the Democrat Senate nominee defended policies to repair past harms and endorsed the failed George Floyd Act. Democrat U.S. Senate candidate James Talarico is facing criticism from Black Democrats over his campaign's outreach efforts after a contentious Houston town hall Sunday. We just saw that in the previous video. One day later, during a town hall in DeSoto, Talarico defended government efforts to repair past harms against Black Americans when asked whether he supports reparations and voiced support for the George Floyd Act. The criticism comes as Talarico continues working to unite Democrats following his primary victory over U.S. Rep. Jasmine Crockett. Crockett has declined to campaign alongside Talarico and previously described the Senate race as a racist race. At a Houston town hall Sunday, Talarico faced pointed questions from Black Democrats who argued his campaign has failed to adequately engage Black voters. In response, Talarico pledged to spend $25 million on Black voter outreach. The promise has done little to satisfy some critics. Quote, Talarico is giving out money to white GOTV organizations and white infrastructure and Hispanic infrastructure, but he's not giving it to Black infrastructure, State Rep. Jolanda Jones said in an interview earlier this month. Quote, Talarico needs to pay for us to get our voters out. Only then does Talarico have a chance to win. Quote. Following Talarico's pledge on Sunday, Jones maintained that he has been unwilling to listen to Black Democrats and has thus far declined to endorse him. The following day, during a town hall in DeSoto, one attendee asked Talarico whether he supports reparations and whether he would support legislation addressing crimes committed against Black Americans. Rather than directly answering whether he supports reparations, Talarico said, quote, repairing past harms, quote, was part of his faith tradition and argued government should invest in Black communities through policies including tuition relief, home ownership grants, and baby bonds to build generational wealth. Quote, we have to correct the injustices of our past, Talarico said, adding that society must commit to, quote, restoring our Black communities and, quote, repair those past harms. Later, he lamented that the Texas legislature failed to pass legislation limiting police powers. We have failed to pass the George Floyd Act, which would have been transformational in ensuring that police officers are actually protecting and serving all of us, Talarico said. He added that he hopes a Democratic Senate majority would allow Congress to pass similar federal legislation. The Texas George Floyd Act proposed a series of policing reforms following Floyd's death, including restrictions on qualified immunity, limitations of use of force in defenses, a duty for officers to intervene, and expanded reporting requirements for law enforcement. The legislation failed to advance during the 2021 legislative session. A request for clarification on whether Talarico considers his position to be support for reparations was not immediately returned. I think he has a lot of work cut out for him. I think he might mean well in Texas, but I don't think he quite gets what he's in for in terms of, one, dealing with the black vote that he needs to get. And like Jolanda Jones said, not invested in black infrastructure and boots on the ground. And then 2, having to go up against his conservative opponent, because he has to prove that he has that progressive track record, and he also has to carry whatever baggage that conservatives are going to attack him on, and that he may not be able to answer for. Right, whatever Biden did, whatever's happening in Texas, he has to defend all of that, and he it's between now and November. He has to make a formidable case to voters on the ground and the debates are coming up in August and September for all of this. And so I don't know who's advising him. I agree with Jolanda Jones. He did make all that investment into the Latino, Hispanic infrastructure and white infrastructure. But then again, he doesn't really have that many black voters, to my understanding, in his districts, his immediate districts to begin with. So maybe that makes sense. But at the end of the day, he has to actually come with an agenda that's going to make sense, for black people. And black people are not necessarily out of pocket for asking, what's the game plan? Renaissance man.
With this, because I forgot to mention, he did stay at that town hall and answer questions. So, and I think at that same town hall, like it said here, he said, hey, 25 million for GOTV as well too. So I think that's a good thing. I have no problem. I mean, he does have, my understanding is a progressive agenda. Obviously, he came out and endorsed these things we talked about here, the George Floyd Act, as well as, the clarification on reparations. The one thing I sort of, and I think you're sort of seeing this tension amongst Democrats is, I don't know enough about this, but I know some of these reps have said, hey, they haven't come to us specifically. Now, granted, I've always thought with the Texas race, I honestly thought that Talarico or Crockett could both win. I just thought their paths looked differently. I thought Talarico was gonna lean more into Hispanic voters, leaning on some crossover white voters, and then could get a decent, sizable black turnout versus Jasmine Crockett pretty much had the juice black turnout for everything she could get. Latino second. And then I kind of thought you had to, I thought she had the least amount of chance of trying to get, some of these quote unquote moderate white voters to switch over. So part of me wants to think that maybe this is just a differing strategy and how they're going about, dealing with, what their turnout and what their path to victory looks like. The only thing is, I get people on the reparations issue, but then I'm also you're running statewide in Texas. That may be something that you go have a discussion about, and behind closed doors, and not as loud and out in the open, because you're trying to deal with running a very how do I want to say it? It's a very tough state to win in. I almost sort of think Roland Martin says, hey, don't really put too much stock in Texas, that it's kind of that place that's always going to let you down, that places like North Carolina, Georgia, those places are much more likely to go blue or return blue before Texas does. So you should really put your energy there. But, here we are as well, too. I just think that, the main thing is you can't, like I said, he's got to kind of walk a tight line. And you really, honestly, you have I think strategically, if you're talking about reparations, you got to get these candidates on the record of whether they support court reform. More than anything first in my mind, because at this point you have the Supreme Court, which pretty much said, hey, it's hostile to anything race related. So I'm wondering if that's sort of playing into sort of his response as well. That's more of an optimistic view. A more cynical view is, like I said, a lot of people may not trust this guy and think that he's gonna kind of not pay the black community attention once he gets elected. So I get, like I said, both sides on the outreach. The one thing I do wonder, though, is, like I said, there's a lot of tension, we'll talk about it later, amongst establishment Democrats and sort of more progressive people. So when I hear some of the rhetoric of I believe Rashida Jones saying that, hey, they haven't really met with me specifically. I'm kind of wondering if, other black people have been engaged who aren't the traditional establishment, because there's this rift between, more of the progressive wing of the party and more of the establishment. And you even have that rift amongst a rift in black politics as well too. So, but those are my thoughts.
They're going 11.
You might be on mute, Nagon.
Oh my goodness, I was on mute. I'm so sorry. Yes, I was on mute. Yeah, pretty good breakdown there, RM. I just also wanted to say, Roland Martin and a few other pundits out here, actually believe, and I'm looking at this as well, that much of this Senate race is going to come through the black community. There is, the black vote will play a significant role in this race. So you're going to have to come through there, and black people, feel as though that they have to put it to Talarico to some degree. And there is a factor of trust, belief, and whether this individual will just, kind of come through, promise, get in, and then forget, and that's what black people really don't want to have. So they want to have him somewhat responsive to what we want. Reparations factor and so forth are going to play a role. So can I say they're wrong to put it to them and have him come to the community and look to do something for them? Nah, I cannot say that they're wrong in that. And pressing them, I cannot say that they're actually wrong in this. So he's going to have to answer that if he's going to get some level of some support out there. The Jasmine piece is important, but at the end of the day, this is not going to be on Jasmine's back to help to really bring this through. She'll play. She said she's not going to go out there and campaign. I know people are saying that she's sour grapes, but I also listened to Talarico say quite up front, hey, Jasmine said she was behind us. She's been supporting us and giving us a lot of her support and so forth. She's backing up. She did say she is backing up our campaign. That's what he said. Please get Jasmine's name out your mouth and so forth. This is what Talarico has been saying somewhere in the community. But his outreach is going to have to be even deeper. And Jasmine can't pull this through for him. She can't. So it's how he is received by the community and whether people feel as though he's someone you can trust, someone who you can really work with and help really get people out and support us. He's got to get people out. It's very important. And the black community is going to play a very key role here.
Well, I mean, he has to prove that with his track record. What has he done as in the Texas State House of Representatives? While he was in office. I mean, those are things that he has to prove. And I don't know. I don't know who's advising him on all of this, but I can tell you right now, if you don't in Texas, if you don't get north of 65% of the black vote, you can't win.
Correct.
That's just the political reality.
That is correct.
Jasmine got 61% of the black vote. So you needed north of 65% to win. And this is important for people to understand that Jasmine didn't lose because she was lackluster. Jasmine lost because the black vote didn't come out north of that 65%. And so Talarico's going to have to figure out a way to tap into that. And if he can't tap into that, he is SOL, in my opinion. So
I think that's exactly correct. We know that that's very important. People are trying to try to hold Jasmine responsible for that. They say, well, Jasmine's not doing, she's all up it and all of this and all of that. And, they're trying to kind of hold her kind of responsible for really not going out and delivering the black community when in many respects, the black community wasn't, how would I say, Mike Blum, the black community didn't fully all the way utterly deliver for her. So this is pretty serious. Pretty serious. Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
He got 2 endorsements. Okay, he got an endorsement from Obama, and Jasmine endorsed him at the end of the primary. So
Correct.
he already got what he can get, from both at the presidential level and at the congressional level. So what more does he really need? From both the congressional PACs as well as Jasmine Crockett. So I don't know what to tell you. But let's move on to the next item on the docket. This one is from NPR. Is this the item here?
Oh, I think it's a political article.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Political.
and then yeah.
Let me zoom in on this one. All right. This is from Politico. Gretchen Whitmer endorses Haley Stevens for Michigan Senate seat. Whitmer waded into one of the highest profile ideological battles within the Democratic Party. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer endorsed Rep. Haley Stevens in her state's contentious Democratic state Senate primary on Friday, wading into one of the highest profile ideological battles within the Democratic Party. Quote, "As governor, I have one strategy: get things done. And that strategy informs everything that I do, and that's why I'm endorsing Haley Stevens for U.S. Senate," Whitmer said in a video post Stevens' account. Stevens is hosting a meet and greet alongside the governor and Rep. Jim Clyburn in Detroit Friday afternoon. Stevens and former public health official Abdul El Sayed are the 2 major Democratic candidates competing in the August 4th primary to replace retiring Senator Gary Peters. El Sayed's candidacy has galvanized progressives, while Stevens has backing from more mainstream Democrats and the tacit support of Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. Quote, "I am absolutely thrilled to have Governor Gretchen Whitmer's endorsement for U.S. Senate," Stevens said in a post on social media. Quote, "She is a champion for our state. She understands the stakes of this race and why it's important we elect the strongest Dem in this primary, and she gets stuff done for Michigan. Let's go win." The race has gained national attention as Democrats aim to keep the seat blue and Republicans vie to flip the seat. Whoever wins the Democratic nomination will face GOP candidate and former Rep. Mike Rogers, who has been endorsed by President Donald Trump in November. Stevens and El Sayed represent the party's ideological split, with Stevens representing the more moderate lane of the party and El Sayed the progressive wing. That's also evident in who endorsed him. Stevens received an additional endorsement from outgoing Senator Gary Peters, and El Sayed has been endorsed by more progressive lawmakers such as Rep. AOC, Senator Bernie Sanders, and Senator Elizabeth Warren. In Warren's endorsement video, she praised El Sayed's vow to not take corporate money while taking a stab at Stevens, who has benefited from a slew of outside donations, including nearly $30 million from the AIPAC-aligned United Democracy Project. Adios, bios. I'm surprised that Gretchen Whitmer would take this position, because I don't necessarily consider her to be that much of a moderate. But after meeting with Trump, I could definitely see that now. But before, in 2024, I didn't see that with her. Having a beer with Kamala Harris and getting things done with Biden. Really bringing on Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist. I would have thought she was a lot more closer to the left than she is to the center, and so. I don't know. Michigan's a very strange state compared to some of the other progressive states, like Massachusetts and New York. But that being said, I guess the party is having a bit of a divide at the moment. Renaissance man.
Yeah, you made a good point there. I agree. Like, I read Gretchen Whitmer is a lot more progressive as well too. You know, especially when she won re-election. You know, I kind of soured on her a little bit when she had the whole fiasco with Trump at the White House, and the infamous folder that infamous photo that went viral of her standing in the White House and holding the blue folder in front of her. And some people have said like, hey, that's kind of where her political career has gone, because I would have thought, she's relatively young in at least in Democratic Party politics. She's someone who I'm sure people will try to throw her name in the hat in 2028 for presidency, and in future elections as well too, because I think she's in her 50s now, so still relatively,
53, I think.
Yeah, still relatively young. So seeing this and kind of seeing, not reading the waves of the party, I mean, it's kind of head scratching, because El Said is definitely the outsider. He's winning from the polling that I've seen. Stevens also got the endorsement of Clyburn as well too, and the establishment. So it's a full-on, like, really, the state is, I think, a microcosm of what you're going to see of the Democratic Party going more and more. And then I think the underlying trend in this, it's not really talked about here, is once again, where does the black vote go? Because someone like Clyburn weighing in, that's basically trying to sway Detroit, to back Stevens, who as it says in the article, has over, I've heard, up to $50 million from outside money from AIPAC. They've been accused of basically trying to make it look like Obama endorsed her when really he didn't. It was an older video where he was talking about her back, I think, like 2014, working on the auto bailout. So it seems like it seems like the establishment, in my mind, is kind of desperate, that they really want to kind of keep El Said out. But I read about him a while ago. I definitely would support him if I was there. He has a very progressive agenda, and it kind of goes, Clyburn came out and said he didn't see many black voters at his rally, but I'm kind of like, hey, what's his agenda? No one's really told me what Haley Stevens is really going to do here, how she really serves Black America. And when you see one guy saying, hey, I'm not taking any corporate money, versus someone like Haley Stevens, who's got all this outside money, even if you do come out and say you're going to do X, Y, and Z for Black America, I'm kind of looking at you like, well, you're taking all this corporate money. Are you really going to be independent? Are you really going to do this? Or is this more of the same? So this will be an interesting race. I think it's in August when the primary happens. So, in the next couple of weeks. So I will be interesting, because, if El Said pulls it off, this will kind of be another instance of really Chuck Schumer really having his candidate not really work out, because I think that's going to happen with Troy Jackson in Maine as well too. And if that occurs and both those people win, I definitely think there's going to be some questions about who's going to hold the gavel if Dems are able to take back the Senate in the fall. So,
Nick on 11.
I have to give it to you, RM. You are right on the money, man. You are cooking. You're hitting it. You're hitting that right on. You're hitting that absolutely right on the head. You knocked that one out the park. I have to give you all a great deal of credit there. Yeah, that's an excellent breakdown. It's pretty much actually what's actually going on currently. There is the key thing that we have to look at. The party is coming to a little bit of a crossroads here, and that's something that we cannot deny. I mentioned it before, DSA, and it's not so much that you have people who are just saying, well, it's the DSA guys that are going to be winning. No, but the whole idea of change in the party, getting away from somewhat of the establishment, there's going to be an awful lot of, as we see, it's going to be, and it's going to be more dollars coming in from AIPAC and AIPAC adjacent wrenches coming in there. That's going to be putting their thumb on the scale. That's going to be happening there. Very big. Said is highly problematic, and that says a lot for Schumer, because you have him win here, especially here right now in this race. It weakens him a lot more. Definitely takes these guys out, and then you can see that this is where there's going to be somewhat of a momentum change in the party, moving a bit more towards the progressive side and kind of moving away from corporate Democrats, which really are going to put things more in the working class, lower middle class type of people, working class folks, based on those fundamental issues of education, healthcare, and so forth. Those basic things for people, and that's kind of where the party is shifting. That's where things are starting to shift. That's the kind of schism that we're seeing currently going on right now, and we're seeing that with the candidates. And I don't think there's much that we can see here to stop. I think this is what's going on, and it's got to play out. Go ahead.
Yeah, Nagona, I was going to say, like, the critique you've been hearing with DSA, though, is a lot of people have been saying, hey, these people are overwhelmingly white. But the thing is, like, here in DC, Janice Lewis George, who won the primary, she's part of DSA. She's a Black woman DSA candidate. So, kind of going back to that critique that Clyburn gave about the rally and the diversity, that's always kind of been the knock on DSA. But like I said, there's been some Black candidates out there. But then I think also where people like me and like younger Black people would say is that, hey, look at their agenda. Like yes, there are some things people do have some questions about. Quote Black, like a Black specific agenda. But if you look at just what they're talking about doing, affordability, home ownership, raising the minimum wage, universal health care, free university tuition, eliminating student debt, all of those things disproportionately helps Black America. So you kind of right now are seeing this tension between, Black specific policies, which I once again go back to, if that's what you're really leaning into right now, you gotta, the top of your list item to me has got to be court reform, because no policy that is focused specifically or even explicitly as anything that's gonna focus on Black America specifically is gonna stand under this court. I mean, we see what they've done to DEI, affirmative action, VRA. They are hostile to race in this.
Well, you can obviously see now. I'm not saying so much of the lower courts, because as we look at with respect to court reform, the lower courts have actually kicked back. And let's talk about some of those decisions. Some of those decisions that we see coming out of the Supreme Court. So there has to be certainly court reform at the Supreme Court, and maybe and certainly. There are those who are saying, since we have in the lower court 12 or 13 justices that sit there, the Supreme Court should sit over top of that, so that should at least be 12 or 13 there, or 12 or 13 there as well. So expansion of the Supreme Court, we should potentially be looking at as well. So there's definitely going to have to be some reform there, and as we see it now, the Supreme Court is hostile, as how it has been classically in the past, in our history, has been hostile against us. We did have Plessy versus Ferguson in 1896. In the Supreme Court that went against us. I think it was 7-1 or whatever it was. It was overwhelming. I mean, it was a crazy decision, but we've seen terrible decisions being made by the Supreme Court. Good ones as well, but terrible ones. So we're going through this period again. So that's currently where we are right now. Go ahead, Mike.
All right, last item on the docket here. This is from NPR. Democrats approve a new primary election calendar, putting South Carolina first. South Carolina was chosen to hold the first Democratic presidential primary in 2028 after a panel voted on the calendar Friday afternoon. The move was pushed by the key Democrats to prioritize Black voters, a reliable and influential voting bloc for the party. The Democratic National Committee's Rules and Bylaws panel recommended South Carolina vote first over Nevada, New Hampshire, and Iowa. who had each been seeking the first spot. Only 6 states will be permitted to hold primaries before Super Tuesday on March 7, 2028. The order recommended by the panel is South Carolina's primary to be held on January 22nd, 2028, followed by Nevada and New Hampshire, which are typically early voting states. New Mexico, Michigan, and Virginia would also be permitted to hold early contests. This calendar will be presented to the full DNC in August to be voted on and finalized. What the hell? South Carolina and the other 5 states could now hold early nominating contests, a play they have been pushing for since the start of this year. During the committee meeting Friday, some states' party leaders and allies were making cases for why their state should go early. Quote, the place to start is in the West, said David McDonald, a member of the committee. Quote, the place to start is in Nevada, which offers the best combination of diversity, certainty, and opportunity. McDonald was likely referring to Nevada's diverse population of Latino, Black, Asian American, and Pacific Islander, Native American, and working class voters. Nevada was considered alongside South Carolina because the party also wants to prioritize Latino voters, a voting group that had a significant election impact in 2024 when President Trump won re-election. Because 2028 is an open primary, advocates for these 2 states argue they give candidates the best chance to be tested by influential voting blocs. At the end, some members raised concerns about Nevada being able to rapidly process election results. South Carolina previously led the Democratic presidential primary in 2024, the first time the process didn't start with Iowa caucuses and New Hampshire's primary election. Some members of the panel spoke about these southern states' role in former President Joe Biden's 2020 nomination. Biden picked up his first early state victory in South Carolina that year before winning other southern states on Super Tuesday. Nearly 1 in 4 registered voters in South Carolina is Black, according to state voting data. According to AP VoteCast, 83% of Black voters nationwide backed former Vice President Kamala Harris in the last presidential election. Quote, the South is not the past, we are the future, said Christelle Spain, chair of the South Carolina Democratic Party. And if we are serious about changing this country, Democrats have to start winning in the South. Spain said Democrats need to demonstrate that they are serious about making the investment in the South, adding that South Carolina has a lot of flexibility for its election dates and 2 weeks of early voting. South Carolina allies said that the party should show that Black voters are a priority for them in a year when the Supreme Court's Voting Rights Act decision led to multiple states drawing new congressional boundaries in districts that had previously ruled in violation of that law. The 6 states picked to be first tell the story of who the Democratic Party is, said Debbie Dingell, a congresswoman from Michigan, urging members not to read too much into who was given the first slot. Michigan will also vote early in the current plan. I think one of the things that should be taken into consideration for both 2020 and 2024 is that Biden won primarily because he had Kamala on the ticket with him. Kamala did well on the ticket at 83% of Black voting turnout because she's on the ticket. If you don't have a Black candidate on the ticket, I'm not sure if South Carolina is going to be the best option for starting South Carolina as first. So, but we won't know anything until after November when we see how things shake out. Renaissance man?
Yeah. I think, like I said, this kind of shows once again, kind of what we talk about this whole episode is sort of the divide within the party of, where with this whole who should go first on the calendar. Now, in the big picture, I don't think it really makes a big difference. Just because at the end of the day, like Nevada, South Carolina, like all those are going to be before Super Tuesday. Really where it comes into play is that if you're thinking about fundraising, and momentum. Some people kind of think, hey, if a candidate can get ahead and win, that get a first win, that can sort of drive fundraising and things along that in that direction. Historically, where this comes from is this one thing that Biden pushed for when he was running for re-election in 2024 was, he basically was like, hey, he wanted to really lean on giving that advantage to him, because if you'll remember in 2020 when Biden won, Bernie basically won. I think it was New Hampshire. No, I think he won New Hampshire. I think he tied in Iowa, and then he won Nevada. So he was kind of really ahead with the nomination, and it was really South Carolina and Super Tuesday and black voters that really saved Joe Biden and got him the nomination. So there's an underpin of this sort of intellectual divide or ideological divide within the party that's showing up in all this. Now, I will say, I personally don't like South Carolina being the state. I think if you're going to talk about southern states, and this process, I think Georgia or North Carolina makes more sense, just because South Carolina has not gone blue, and definitely not since I've been alive, and I don't really even know the last time when. Versus Georgia has gone blue.
It hasn't gone blue since tariffs and taxes.
Should say that again. Yeah. So I'm kind of like, other than James Clyburn being from there, why is this state, first on the primary calendar? It makes more sense, like I said, Atlanta in Georgia, kind of the, one of the hubs of Black America. North Carolina, you've got places like Charlotte, and the Triangle. That's really a place where Black people are doing well. So to me, that makes more sense if you're talking about the Southern influence on the party. But like I said, big picture, I don't think it's going to make a difference, because of, like I said, all those states are going to be before Super Tuesday. But states are doing people are doing any and everything they can to jockey for power in this Democratic Party, which is kind of having its own Tea Party moment, I'd say.
Going 11.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt the party's having its own Tea Party, and this kind of Tea Party movement going on inside of the Democratic Party currently is I would say that some of the influences coming out of the DSA, but really talking about a populist kind of a ground floor economic and somewhat social movement that's going to incorporate the average American as opposed to the ultra wealthy and super rich, and we've got we got trillionaires now. So people are looking at this a little differently. And what I also saw was kind of interesting, and this is just mentioning a rather interesting fact. It seems like the young people from 18 to 35, I believe, tend to favor more of a socialist bent than a absolute capitalist one. So that seems to be more popular amongst the young. So that seems to be growing, which I find interesting. So if things are trending that way with the younger generation, what does that say, and how is that going to be affecting our politics now? And I think we're seeing some of those influences currently. And will this continue to grow is another question. But if we see politicians getting in and we see them being successful, and we see their policies being enacted that are affecting people positively, this will be something that will further grow. But that's yet to be seen. But this is where things tend to be trending, and I just wanted to bring that to light as well.
Indeed. Any closing thoughts, Renaissance man?
Yeah, nah. Like I said, the only thing is, like I said, I think this will be something that we just have to continue to monitor and watch. Like I said, this growing trend of, I guess you could call it, insurgency from the left, and what that really means for black establishment candidates, black progressives, and how this really shakes out. So it's interesting times. My recommendation has always been, hey, for people who say they want to see change, the party doesn't do enough, it doesn't neglects black voters, all these things. Now's the time where, regardless of who ends up winning, it's definitely things are changing. The guard is being challenged, and if you're not present or participating in the process, however this thing shakes out, you're not going to have much of a voice if you're not there, really trying to influence things. So my thing to anyone who claims that they want to see changes, you got to get involved. And now, like I said, now it seems to be a time where a lot of momentum and a lot of things are being challenged, and there's going to be some changes from this. How much of it is still yet to be seen, but you're definitely seeing the establishment candidates who are in trouble right now.
Any closing thoughts, Nicole?
No, Mike. Hey, listen. Great, great show. Great stuff. Appreciate you inviting me up. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all for joining us. Please hit the like button on the way out. Share the video if possible, and hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust.